Hi, and welcome to the Conscious Co-Creation Challenge. We are on day 4, and I'm Tracy Goody, your Practical Ascension Guide. So with this challenge, we're just beginning to open up and understand how this co-creation process works, maybe getting a reminder if you're familiar with this information already. And all of the days are working together to try and give you a perspective and an understanding of exactly what's going on and how you can affect your reality. So today in day 4, we are talking about your energetic system within. So what is informing your vibration? So I have a lot of different notes of things that I want to talk about today, but basically this inner world is creating our outer world. So yeah, the outer world plays a role too, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow and how that affects your vibration, which then affects your reality. But right now I'm talking about your inner world and what's going on within you that is creating that reality on the outside. So we know that our focus and the emotion we put into that, which is just energy and motion, equals the reality. So our focus, our perspective, plus the energy and motion, the emotion that we have, equals the reality. Does that make sense? All right, so let's talk about focus and perception for a while first. So your focus and your perception creates your thoughts, which then create your beliefs, which then create your reality. So your perception of yourself, for example, your perception of your circumstances and what's going on around you, that is either perpetuating whatever's going on, and if that's a good thing, great, and if it's a challenging thing, then that's time to shift that. So whatever you're focusing on perceiving within yourself, who you are, what you're capable of, what you're deserving of, is going to translate into your thoughts, into your beliefs, into your reality. So if your perception, now going back to like your situation, if your perception of your situation is that it's always the same, it never changes, very kind of like rigid, then that's what you're going to perpetuate, and that's what is going to continue to happen for you. Now, you can see this example with like, and lots of people have done this with different like fruit or plants or anything like that, but you can see this example where if you were to have an apple and then you had a second apple that's pretty well identical, comes from the same bag and looks to be about the same health, right? If you take 2 apples and you put one apple and you're like super kind and you focus your energy and motion, your emotion towards loving thoughts towards it, and then you take the other apple and then you focus kind of negative, defeating thoughts towards it, the apple that gets the love is going to last the longest, and the one that gets the defeating thoughts is going to rot the quickest. So it's that same whenever we're focusing on ourselves. So just if you do want to prove that to yourself, you can do that with like a piece of food or a plant or something like that, and just to get your logical brain on board with, hey, you know, there is something to this. So whatever your energy and motion and your perspective focus is going to create the environment around the apple that tells it what to do, that tells it you're going to thrive or you're going to die, right? So it's that same thing, considering and kind of like thinking about your energy, and within your energy field, the thoughts and the beliefs that you're putting into that is either creating an environment where your co-creation can flourish and do really, really great and come to fruition, or it's creating an environment where the co-creation can't come to fruition because of the resistance within your energy system. All right. So this is why during this whole challenge, I keep coming back to this, finding your home base, finding your vibrational alignment. It is the most important thing. That's why the most important thing is that you feel really, really good, because from there you're open to all possibilities. You're open to creating the changes and the solution. Whenever you are in alignment with your higher self. So your higher self always thinks the best of you, always thinks the best and sees the best perception of the situation. So when you agree with your higher self, that helps to draw the things you want to you. Whenever you feel this centered, this grounded, being in the present moment, whenever you're able to do that, you're more able to tune into what's going on in your internal environment and see where adjustments need to be made. So whenever you are, let's go back to this perception again a little bit more. So how do you shift that? Like, how do you change that? Whenever, for example, the situation or the circumstance that you're in feels like, like you're stuck, like I can't move forward with this. How do you shift that? How do you shift your perception of that? There's all different types of ways to do it. But the simplest way, and what I like to go to, is just asking, how does my higher self see this situation? Right? So just allowing the place your perspective is coming from to go a little tiny bit higher, because sometimes you can be stuck in like your mental body all right here, all up in your head about what's going on and the way that it is, and well, logically I can't change it or nothing's going to shift, right? So you want to get out a little tiny bit further, right? You want to get into your higher self, into that higher vibration, and say, okay, what is my higher self's perspective on this? And sometimes you can change your perspective just like that, just by tuning into that higher vibration. What you're doing is you're allowing your vibration to go from the problem or kind of what is out into the energy of the solution. So what can I focus on that moves me into a solution focus? And there's all different types of exercises for this. One that I've seen that works well too is that you write down, you make a big circle like a clock. You write down at the top of it what the issue is. And then you look for any positive aspects you can in that situation. Maybe lessons you've learned, maybe things that have come about because of it, things you've learned about yourself, any positive, anything you're grateful about it, anything positive aspects of it, right? And then by the time you're coming back around to it, you write 12 different points here for every number on the clock. By the time you're coming back around to the top of the circle, your perspective would have shifted at least a little bit. So any exercises like that to help you shift your perspective, not only does it shift your perspective, but it shifts the trajectory of what you are co-creating. So it shifts what you're focused on, which then will shift your thoughts, which then shifts your beliefs and then your reality, right? So we already have the information all coming into us. We're always gathering information all the time. So much information, right? But we can't process all of that information because we're just not set up for that right now. So what happens is we take in all of this information and then it gets filtered through this RAS system, this reticular activating system back here in your brain, which says, okay, well, these are the things you need to pay attention to. This is what you should focus on and you should perceive from what's going on around you, from this situation, that circumstance. So this reticular activating system decides what is important and filters out the rest based on our previous situations, based on our previous experience. So that's not always going to be like the highest and best way to look at things, because usually when we're looking at things based on previous experience, it's a little bit skewed. So I did write out an example here too. So like I said, the reticular activating system tells us what we should perceive. So the way that that's working is like any unprocessed trauma or emotions or things like that we haven't dealt with, that's running our subconscious and that's telling us what we should perceive. So the example that I bring is that, say and like, this doesn't have to mean like big trauma, big capital T trauma. This can be anything that's happened in your life that was just unprocessed. So say for example, you had a sibling and all the time you wanted to play with this sibling. We'll assume the sibling was older, right? And all the time you wanted to play with this sibling, and all the time the sibling rejected you, didn't have time for you, right? And you started feeling pretty crappy about yourself for that. And then you grew up and you totally forgot about it. Now, the way that program might be running is that you're always expecting people to reject you in some sense, right? Or maybe feeling like you're unworthy or unlovable. And the way that might show up is more so, say, for example, you're running a business and you have this expectation or this perception that people don't want to give you the time of day, that you're going to be rejected, that you're not worthy of people's times, that you're not worthy of people investing with you because of this unprocessed trauma. So that's what you're perceiving, right? So the way that might show up is people are not kind of taking action and investing with you, and you're doing all the right things and you're not sure exactly what's not clicking here, but it's because your perception and your focus is focused on what you are lacking and what is separating you, right? So just some really kind of simple journaling exercises can help to bring this up to the surface too, right? So just what are the consequences of people reaching out to me? What would that mean? What would be true? So think about what subconscious consequences might come up, right? So probably for this example here, what might come up is I'll be rejected. And maybe the way that your system is set up is that it's more painful to be rejected than to be ignored, right? So it's easier to be ignored than rejected. So you keep creating that in your reality, right? So whenever you start to dive in and just asking yourself, when was the first time I felt this way? Why am I perceiving that everybody is rejecting me? Where did I learn this pattern? And like, yes, you can do work in the Akashic records and you can work with coaches, but also doing your own self-healing so that you don't have to wait to connect to somebody. Just doing some journal work or doing some EFT tapping and asking yourself these questions. When was the first time I felt this way? And that can begin to shift that perception, right? So that's the point where you have created this belief, you've created this perception to look for those things. You can be shifting that from there. So you're shifting your perception to feeling worthy, feeling lovable, feeling worthy of people's time and people's investment, right? You're shifting that into that solution energy. And once you can feel that way within yourself, then you start to, like I said, project that out into the world through your emotion, through that energy and motion, and then that draws more things to you that prove to you that you are worthy, that you are lovable. And then that's when things can start to change for like clients will start wanting to invest in things like that because you're feeling that worthiness. So that shift within happens before the shift in circumstance. And it might happen really quickly where you shift within, you feel really good, you feel really connected. That same day, you see a shift in your circumstance. Or it can take a lot longer too. It just totally depends on what else is going on. But if you are doing the work and you are diving into why am I feeling this way, turning it back on yourself. When was the first time I felt this way? What are the consequences of healing this? Because that's another aspect too, right? Whenever we go in and we start realizing, okay, I am worthy. Now, if I was to believe fully that I was worthy and deserving, what consequences would that have for me? So that might mean that you had to step up as your role as a leader, or that might mean that you're going to be seen by a lot of people, right? So asking about the consequences of the solution too, because sometimes we have resistance to the solution. I don't want to lose you here. I still want to keep this as simple as possible so that you can implement this as well. So my last kind of notes that I have that I want to share today is, how are you perceiving? So we looked at perceiving yourself and perceiving your circumstances. Now, how are you perceiving your intended co-creation? So are you seeing yourself as somebody who has created that, has manifested that, has that in their life? Or are you seeing that as a possibility for you? So how can you perceive yourself in relation to what you want to co-create? Do you perceive that it's one? I am a woman who has created this, who allows this. This is a part of me. Or do you feel resistance there to that? And that'll give you a good indication of what subconscious programming you might have that's informing your perspective of what to see. And that keeps you focused on the problem instead of the solution. So how do I feel with myself in relation to my co-creation? Do I feel like we're a match? Do I feel like there's nothing separating us? Do I feel like we are connected? Does that feel like a connection to me? If not, what's creating that separation? What's my perspective and what's my belief in here that's making me think that this is not for me, this is not possible for me? So it's just this mindfulness practice of paying attention, again, paying attention to your vibration, your alignment, and that just means how you feel. Do I feel connected? Do I feel grounded? Do I feel inspired and confident in where my intuition is leading me? So this mindfully paying attention to your vibration gives you all the answers that you're ever going to need. Just asking yourself, am I focused on the solution here and drawing that to me? Or am I still focused on the problem and drawing more of that to me? So again, finally, when you're in this place of this solution, when you're in this energy that's informing the outside world, I'm ready for the solution now, I am no longer running on the vibration of the problem, that's when things will start to shift in the reality. All right, so the challenge for today is to think about yourself in relation to what you want to co-create and ask yourself, do I feel connected to this? Do I feel like can I really see myself having this? Can I see this happening easy? Am I the type of person that receives this and that sustains it? And just see what comes up for you. And if you do find some resistance in there, you're totally normal. We all have resistance, but if you do find some resistance in there, journal it out. Use whatever method you have for releasing any trapped emotions or releasing that heaviness, EFT tapping, any of those things. But do something to help bring you closer, to shorten that gap between you and your desired co-creation. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you tomorrow on day 5.